Hello, Andy Mort here. I hope you're doing okay. Welcome to another Notes from a Slow Coach. I have the sun poking through some trees outside the window here, so you might notice some funny little things happening with lighting during this video. I am aware of it, don't worry. It's really quite beautiful, actually. Have you ever had one of those sudden realizations that you are still doing or using the same thing that you did years ago, with no real apparent reason? Some things naturally reach the end of their usefulness once their work is complete. Others become useful when we keep them in the borderlands, waiting for the time that they might one day find a place. This video emerged from the question that we explored in last week's journal circle in the Haven. How do you know when an idea has reached the edge of its usefulness? I initially read this question as the end of usefulness rather than the edge, which had a surprisingly kind of contaminating effect on my response at first. The end of usefulness implies a beginning of usefulness. And as we explored later in the week, some ideas actually sit on the edges of life before they become useful, before they connect and find a place to fit later on. We might evaluate something's usefulness by recalling why we initially used it, whether it's a practical tool, a method or model, an institution, a person, a belief, a value. It's likely that they served a need or a purpose when we first connected with them. Asking myself why I chose this, if I did choose it, and what made it the right idea at the time can help reconnect me with my earlier perspectives before they were lost to habit, noise, or familiarity. Is the original purpose still present? Does it still hold water? Perhaps it's changed. Maybe circumstances have shifted, or the ground beneath my feet feels different now. What is the terrain like here at the edge of usefulness? Does it broaden my world or narrow it? Is it helping me feel more at peace with myself, or more pressured to become something else? Does this feel nourishing and sustaining, or am I holding on to it to avoid the discomfort of letting go? Does it invite space for new possibilities, or leave me circling the same walled area? It might not mean that this idea is useless, but that I need to recalibrate my approach because the way that I used it previously is no longer effective in the same way as it was. Or perhaps I've gained new information, new experience, new skill that I can now apply and connect in different ways. Those dormant pieces, resources and ideas at the margins are now ready to be played with and integrated. Perhaps it was useful at the time, but it's no longer relevant. It can be put aside again, stored away. Maybe an opportunity will arise again in the future and it will return. There's a rhythmic, seasonal, circular pattern to things rather than a straight line with the end of usefulness culminating in a drop-off as we reach the conclusion of the conveyor belt. Someone in the Haven described this beautifully. The edge is where certain ideas reside, creative nudges, momentary desires, and thorns that catch the sleeve of our attention in everyday life. They're not immediately or obviously useful, but they are present. They've been seeded, they're worth noticing, and they're allowed to exist in the edges, waiting, dormant. They're not a core focus, nor something to impose or force meaning upon at this moment. And we can return to those borderlands, wandering through them, seeing what is planted here, letting these ideas rest, root, and reveal themselves in time. And this echoes a coaching conversation I had a couple of years ago about distinguishing between ideas that are not for now, ideas that are not yet, and ideas that are not for me. Many of us are pulled towards a whole range of interests and pursuits and desires, and there's loads of stuff that we'd love to do in life. And it's not easy to know which ones we should give our finite resources to, our energy, our time. We might spread ourselves too thin or become frozen in fear of choosing the wrong thing. So is it possible to filter these pulls? This is what we were exploring in that conversation. Not for now. Something is important, but this is not the right time for it. Not yet. Something is important and the time is coming. Perhaps I need to prepare for when it does arrive. And not for me. Something is important, but I'm not the person to do it. I just hope that maybe it finds someone who is. In the Haven, we've talked quite a bit over the years about the difference between support from above and support from below. The difference between that support from below, which is being held by someone or something that provides a kind of environment of safety as we engage with things that matter. And then the support from above, which is kind of being instructed or told what to do by someone or something else. I recently spoke with Justin Sinceri about his work as a therapist and how he aims to essentially become unnecessary. And it's the same in coaching. You know, my goal is to be alongside them as they go as far as they want me to go with them, which we define in the early stages of the coaching partnership. And this contrasts with a lot of the online marketing trends in the kind of wellness and self-help world, where the goalposts often shift in favor of market logic, which pulls us back from the edge of usefulness, like we're on a bungee cord, and offers us upsells, rebranded versions of old materials, and the pathologizing of ordinary life as something to fix, viewing being human as something to optimize and even overcome without any end in sight. And the temptation to give ourselves to these things is reinforced by the fact that letting go is not always easy. Recognizing the edge and choosing to step away from something can be painful. Sensitive individuals often experience endings as relational ruptures rather than merely administrative decisions. You know, we might feel attached to a person or a familiar practice, a habit, a resource that we have grown used to. And letting go of it can feel like a significant loss, even when we understand that the change is natural and necessary. So how do we bring gentleness to these transitional moments, to these bridges? For some people, and in some contexts, the best thing might be a hard door slam. You know, this is the way to sort of end the agony of prolonging things too long and ultimately to be gentle with themselves. You know, they've taken it as far as they can, they've tried, and they've diminished any potential future regrets that might crop up from giving up too soon. And so really making sure that they're making that decision in the most intentional and robust way so that that door, when it's shut, that's a very definitive moment. And at the edge, they might realize they need a clean end and a fresh start. And for others, potentially in certain situations, gentleness might be a more of a subtle shift without that sudden change, a softened transition by welcoming and embracing what's next or elements of what's coming next, facilitated through gathering and integrating those things from the upcoming season that we're preparing for. And as we do that, the old things, those things off the edge of usefulness, naturally fall away if they no longer fit that picture. And so this edge mirrors the natural erosion we might imagine off a cliff, you know, where things fall not because they've been pushed, but because they're no longer part of that landscape. Life moves in rhythms and seasons. We might outgrow things quietly, without drama, in ways that only become obvious once we start to recognize them. Outgrowing something doesn't mean it's flawed. Everything has limits, parameters, and scope. And so this simply indicates that we have reached the edge where that thing is no longer helpful in the way that it maybe once was. But nothing is wasted. We carry it with us. It remains there, something learned, something developed, something understood. We take it on as a nugget of wisdom, the clarification of a belief, or the letting go of a belief, all within this ever-evolving creative toolbox of life that we add to and draw from as we continue to be who we are forever in the process of becoming. So, yeah, how do you know when an idea has reached the edge of its usefulness? I'd love to hear what you think of that. Drop a comment below or send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. All right, I'll be back again soon with another note from a slow coach. Until then, take care. Bye bye.